Welcome to the part B of week 2 of Introduction to Java. In this session, we are going to practice everything about object-oriented programming which we learned this far. So this time, we are going to actually create a proper project with, multiple classes, creating multiple objects, having the methods interact with each other, having the classes interact with each other, and thereby coming up with an object-oriented solution for a particular problem. So the problem which we are going to work on right now is on an e-commerce website project. So an e-commerce website would require a Java project, to be able to do tasks for them. So for example, probably after viewing the products, a user might want to actually put the product in the cart and then, go through the entire checkout process. The seller might be wanting to insert a new product and so many things. An administrator would want to add a particular product to various categories. So how to do all these things is something which we are going to see right now. So in Eclipse, we can actually create a new folder. We will be creating a new Java project and I would just call this e-commerce. And I will click on finish and we would create a module. So here we do have a particular module and we have this e-commerce, but actually we don't have to worry about this module, I'll just delete this module info.java and let's create a new class and we would just call it home or we would call it store. So this is our e-commerce store, where everything would lie, and I would just create a main over here and let's just do a sysout. Welcome to the e-commerce store. And that's it. Let's try to run this project. So now how do we run this? We would run it as a Java application and this would say welcome to the e-commerce store. So now this is the way we would create any particular project, but obviously what does your project do? It just prints a line. That's not a very impressive thing, right? So we're supposed to actually create an actual e-commerce store. So let's think about this. We can actually have an e-commerce store ask, which type of user are you? And you could be a customer or you could be a seller or you could be an administrator. So now you have a user and a user can be a customer. The user can also be a seller or an administrator. Now let's say if the user selects customer. So the customer would be having a number of options, right? For example, view products, view cart, or contact us. And the seller might have options like view your products, just to check, which products the seller has uploaded, or add a product, or contact us. Now, after a customer chooses, view products, then the customer is probably given option to add the product to the cart. And then, if the customer, let's say, chooses to view cart, then the option which is given to the customer is to check out. Similarly, for the seller, if the seller chooses to view your products, then the seller can be given an option to delete this product. And similarly, if the seller chooses to add a product, then the seller is actually given the option to submit details of the product. If it is an administrator, then the administrator might have certain other options, but we are not going to talk about this right now. Let's look for the customer and for the seller, how we could actually implement these things. Now, how many objects can you imagine in e-commerce domain? We obviously do have, other than customers and sellers who are users, we do have products, right? We could have, a lot of details of the products. So now each product would also have categories. So we would have categories of products. And then, as you know, that, the customer can add products to the cart. So we also have a cart object. So we have a cart object, we have category object, we have product object, we have user, we have seller, we have customer. All these nouns which you can see, these are all objects which you can create. And lastly, you could also have an object of order, which would actually have the entire order of a particular customer. So this is the way you could actually, think about an e-commerce software design. So now over here, we just have, a sysout to welcome you to the e-commerce store. The next thing, which is something which we want to do, is which user are you? And then, give them option of customer, and then you have seller and admin. So now we really want to take, some input from the user. So we would just, use again the scanner object with system.in, and then from this we would want to actually get the next int from the user. And after this, we are going to put that in the choice. So there's going to be a choice of the user, and now what are we going to do with the choice? So now if choice is equal to 1, then the user is actually a customer, right? So we have to create type of user, and this is going to be customer, and that's it. Similarly, you could have the seller and the admin. So it is 2 and 3, then it is seller, or it's going to be admin. All right, so we do have the type of user over here, else. So we could put else if in all places, and then finally else, it's not a valid type of customer. So you would just do a sysout invalid input, and then we'll write try again. And then, we could keep doing this thing until we do have a type of user. Now, when we talk about the different types of users, for that, don't you think that we should have a class specifically of user? So, and now each user is actually going to be a customer or a seller or an administrator. We can have more different types of users going ahead. So we should never be able to actually create an object of a user, but we should only be able to create an object of either a customer or a seller or an administrator, because we do not want an abstract user, right? We just want a pretty concrete person to use our e-commerce website. So instead of a class, we would create an interface known as user. And in this, now what does a user generally have? A user would definitely have a user ID. So we would write it as user ID. The user could also have password. So that's what we are going to write. And let's just keep it at this. So now over here, we do not have any attribute to user ID and password. And now when we go to source, if we try to generate getters and setters, it says it is not applicable to interfaces. Now that's important, because here we want to only have those methods which are not implemented, right? We need abstract methods. So over here, we could actually create abstract methods for user ID or password. We could also create things like what is the login status? Is the user currently logged in or not? And we could have an abstract method which would, verify user. So this could be a method which would, verify the user based on the user ID and password, and then, return a Boolean which is going to be, successful verification or not. So this is how we would have a method in this particular user interface. Now let's create our multiple users over here. Let's create our customer class. Now this customer class is actually going to extend or implement, in fact, the interface which we just created. So we would implement user. So this would implement the user. And now we have, it says the type customer must implement the inherited abstract method user.verify user. So now we will add the unimplemented method. So now, for example, over here, I would just, return true. Always, I'm verifying the user. This is what I will do. But obviously, in a real world project, you would obviously want to verify the user based on the database which you have of the users, right? So right now it, adds an override annotation above this to just to show that, this is overridden from the inheritance, from the implemented interface which we have. So now we are going to verify our user, and now over here you can actually, also try to add the cart associated, with the user. So I would just create an object of cart. So we would just write cart cart, and then we will try to use the cart of this particular user, but then cart is not yet created. So we would create a new class cart. So now this class is created, but we would actually work on this a little bit later. For now, we just have a new cart of this particular customer. Now in this cart, there is supposed to be a list of products, right? So we would create an array of products. So there would be product, and then let's just call it list of products. And that's it. A cart has a list of products. Now again, it says that this product class is not yet created, so we would create this particular class of product. Now each product would definitely have a product ID, right? So we would have string product ID, and then every product would also have a cost associated with it, right? So we would have string cost, and then what's the name of the product? We would have product name. That's it. Let's keep it simple right now. Over here I'll also generate the getters and setters. So let's go to source and generate the getters and setters for this particular product. So now we have all our methods and instance variables available with us. We do have a list of products in our cart as well, and each customer has a one cart. So this is how the relationship between different classes are possible. Now we also have multiple more users, right? We also have a seller and an admin. So let's create a seller class. The seller would again implement the user interface, and then we would add the unimplemented method over here. We would automatically just verify this particular seller again as we did for the customer. Now each seller has a list of products of his own, right? His or her own. So we would have a list of products similarly which we have for the cart. So let's copy this and paste it over here. So list of or we would just say products listed, because the seller is actually going to list products in the e-commerce website, right? So the naming has to be correct and nice so that it's understandable. So we have a list of products. Even for the list of products we could add a getter and setter. So this is how it's going to get the list of products and set the list of products. Similarly, we could do the same over here in cart. We could have a getter and setter for the list of products. And really, this is so important to have, the getters and setters and make this particular product to be private, so that nobody else is able to actually work on this particular list of products without being able to just get and set. That's it. We just provide that interface, and this is a very good abstraction way in which we just give the user that you can get the list of products and you can set the list of products, but you cannot do anything else with the list of products over here. And this is the beauty of Java, how abstraction is given to the user, and this whole concept of encapsulation happens over here. Similarly, we would make these attributes private. Now this is the thing, right? It's always the thumb rule. If you don't have any specific reason of making it public, then you always should keep things private. If you don't have any specific reason of modifying a particular thing, then always make it constant or final. So that's what we follow in industry as well. Let's make this cart private as well. We may even change things if we feel so, but for now let's keep these things private, and then just generate a getter and setter based on what we would want to use. So the thing which is left is category and order. So let's create a new class for category. Now this is going to have the category name, and it may also have a list of subcategories. So now really, what is a subcategory? Subcategory would also be a category in and of itself, right? So it actually is having its own self within it. So we have an array of categories which we would call subcategories. So it may be null initially, there may not be nothing in this, or there may be a number of subcategories for a particular category. So we would want to again generate getters and setters for this. Now, if you want to change the formatting of any particular code, you can just press Ctrl Shift and F, and then you would have it in a better format, and it looks better and more understandable. And the last thing which we want to add is an order, because a user can create an order. So we would have an order class which would have an order ID. So this would be order ID, and we would definitely have the order ordered by a particular user, right? So we would really want the user ID of the person whose order this particular order is, right? So now again, we'll just generate the getters and setters and make these private. And we'll make this category name and subcategories private as well. Let me just correct my spellings, and now as you can see that as soon as I try to correct the spelling, the other places started giving error. So we will correct the error over here. Let's also correct the spellings over here. Now regarding this order,